These emails go back 4 years ago. It's not just 10 years ago. Some of these things
2011 to 2018.
Yeah, so they span a long period of time, and I'm not sitting there. There is no way to defend any of this. I mean, these are his words, and you can read these words. And there were 650,000 emails that were sifted through within the investigation of the Washington football team, which obviously was completely screwed up. Even though he wasn't a part of it, he was sending those emails to Bruce Allen, the president of the Washington football team when they were known as the Redskins, and all of this stuff was going on. He is one of the more popular coaches in terms of popularity of his name and his likeness and everything else because of his initial foray into the Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, then for ESPN all those years. And he sent these emails while he was an ESPN employee, by the way. And then on top of that, went back and signed a 10-year deal with the Raiders. So, he basically spoke himself right out of the league. With the high-profile nature of this league, with trying to sell tickets, with trying to do the right thing, unfortunately for Jon Gruden, these words are just completely unacceptable. They were unacceptable when he wrote them, and they're unacceptable now. And you can't have one of the more popular coaches, if you will, standing in front of a microphone every day, speaking on behalf of his football team when he is tied to these emails. So he finally did the right thing and resigned. I don't know why the league or Mark Davis didn't fire him. And I know Mark Davis looks at him like a son and he loves Jon Gruden. That part of the story is also a part of this. The other really strange thing is that the Raiders under Al Davis had always been ahead of the curve. He hired Amy Trask as the president of operations, the first woman to have that spot on an NFL team. He gave landing spots for so many different minorities.
Shell.
Yeah, so many different minorities in coaching and in every aspect of the organization. So he was really ahead of where the NFL is today in many respects for all the teams. So there is no way that he could walk on the sideline of an NFL football team under the current set of circumstances.
Well, especially with all the black players on the roster, especially with Carl Nassib on the roster, who was openly gay and on his team. Yeah, you're right. There was absolutely no way. And the NFL has been fighting this incestuous boys club thing that has gone on for many, many years. And this was a spotlight on that. That's what this was.
I'm not saying that there are other coaches. I'm sure there are, but, this is like backstabbing at its worst. The sending emails to friends that contain these arguments or the language that is pointed and directly at people that you either work with or work for.
Yeah. Jeff Fisher, Roger Goodell, DeMarie Smith.
It's competitive, yes, for sure. There's no question about that. But it's also, there's a Neanderthal aspect to it. I hate to say it, but it's like one of the reasons why I'd much rather cover it than live in it.
Huh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
You asked me a million times, why didn't you go back into coaching? I'm like, hey man, this is like part of what it had been, and I think it's being weeded out as we move forward. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, I'm not surprised by any of this, and I would.
You're not surprised that Jon Gruden?
No, and I wouldn't be surprised if there are more people that are going to be implicated in this over the 650,000 emails. I would not be surprised. I don't know where this is headed. I don't know who else is involved. But, he was sending this to the president of the Washington football team.
To his team email. Now, Jon Gruden was using his personal email, but Bruce Allen was using his team email, and that's why they were able to comb through it. And in that investigation of the Washington football team. So that's how it got uncovered, and you're probably right. Now, I would think, though, if there was anybody else involved on the Washington football team side of it, would have found that out already, because immediately, what are you thinking when there's 650,000 emails?
I'm thinking that the owner somehow
Exactly,
involved.
Right.
Well, the owner is not popular anyway. As a matter of fact, his limited partners wanted him out and wanted to take over the team themselves, but instead, he bought the limited partners out. So that team's a mess, man. That team's got half-empty stadium down there and everything else. It's, whatever that team is doing right now ain't working, and it hasn't been working for a while. And Ron Rivera's stuck right in the middle of that whole mess down there, and he's trying to clean it up the best he can. But this Gruden thing, when Adam Schefter came on last night at halftime and broke in, I wasn't surprised. I don't know why. I think maybe because of the conversations that we had at the NFL today and Coach Cowher's take on a lot of this stuff. And it really is. You have to understand that these coaches are the face of those franchises. And they're the ones that are speaking to the fans every single day. Whether you like it or not, that's part of their job, and it's a big part of their job. And, a couple of guys do it in a very unique way, Bill Belichick being one, maybe Joe Judge being the other. But for the most part, those guys are the face of those franchises. And you cannot have a face of your franchise that is tied to emails like this and language like this.
So what do you say to the people that are out there screaming again, oh, we've got another example of the cancel culture. This is out of control. We've seen so much of this.
No. In this case, no, I don't. This is behind the scenes. This is something that, to me anyway, the language is strong. And it's too insulting to too many people, and it has to be dealt with swiftly. And I think Jon Gruden recognized that. Like I said, Mark Davis did not fire him. The league did not fire him. He resigned. Now, he resigned probably in utter embarrassment.
A ton of pressure, I'm sure, too.
But I'm also thinking that he resigned to take a lot of the pressure off of Mark Davis.
Yeah.
Because Mark Davis wasn't a part of this, didn't realize any of this. So I'm sure that he resigned out of respect for Al Davis and Mark Davis, which he should have done. And, he basically canceled himself.
Yeah, I think there's examples that we've seen over the last year or so where there is one accusation by somebody that may be unfounded, and then that person gets canceled, and then you could say, all right, this is a cancel culture situation. These aren't accusations. These are emails that we have seen his words, and there is multiple offenses in these emails. So that's why.
And then given everything the league has gone through, whether there are some people that support what the league has gone through and some people don't. I mean, it's always, both sides. There's always, you try to straddle the fence and you try to listen to each side. But in this case, any reasonable person, any practical person, any person with any understanding of what the league has gone through over the last 2 years, over the last 5 years, over the last 10 years, realizes then when you compare these emails to what the league has been sending out and trying to do, there's just no way for him to remain as head coach of the Rangers. There's no way for him to remain to be any part of the league.
Yeah.
He can't.
And he was, and you mentioned it, as high profile as it got. And you're talking about big personality, nicknames, Super Bowl winning head coach. ESPN was a star in that booth, became the head coach with a humongous contract to one of the most popular teams in the NFL. I mean, anybody whose emails would be uncovered in this way that had that in it would not survive in their current job. But when you're Jon Gruden, there needs to be, I shouldn't say an example made out of him, but it was just one of those things where, like, there's just, it couldn't remain in that way. I mean, there's no, I'm with you on there's no argument to the contrary.
No, there's not. There's not an argument. And, I thought the initial email was enough for him to resign.
Yeah.
Given the fact and the state of, how vocal, I would say many of the black players have become over the years towards racism and subtle racism and hidden racism and things of that nature, which this all obviously is attached to. And I don't, I've known Jon Gruden for a long time. I've covered him for a long time. I don't know him very well. I know him well enough that if I had to text him and ask him a question about his team, he would respond.
Yeah.
Never gone out to dinner with him. But, he's got a reputation. He's always had a reputation for being a hothead. He's always had a reputation for being tough on his quarterbacks. He's always had a reputation for being and I hate to say this, but a guy's guy. Like this, I'm a guy's guy. He's a man. He don't even put up with all this other nonsense. Female referees, are you kidding? I mean, this is the kind of crap.
Right. Gay player getting drafted.
Right. This is the kind of crap that you're dealing with here. So, he's had an incredibly successful career, but unfortunately, it is all now for naught because of what he decided to put in an email to the president of the Washington football team, Bruce Allen.
Do you remember when Carl Nassib came out and we referenced what Jon Gruden said about it because he put it so eloquently?
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing to look back on that now and then to see what he was saying about Michael Sam at the time.
And what he was saying about Jeff Fisher.
Yeah, well, at Jeff Fisher drafting Michael Sam.
These coaches go back and forth, stabbing each other in the back all the time. This crap goes on. I wouldn't say that the language goes on all the time, but the disdain for one another and the backstabbing and the insecurities are wrought throughout the league. I mean, from the players who are worried about keeping their jobs and getting the contract that they believe that they deserve, to the head coaches always looking over their shoulders for their replacement because they know they're going to get fired eventually. So, and that's happening in a lot of teams right now as we speak. We're 5 games into the regular season.
Yeah.
And there are already fan bases that are screaming for, coaches' jobs and want change already.
Yeah, I mean,
so this
got some of them right here.
It's kind of an environment that lends itself to the idiocy of
the paranoia.
And the paranoia and the insecurities. When they said breaking news last night and Adam came on ESPN, I was like, this has got to be about Jon Gruden. It's got to be about him.
Sure. I mean, that was really the only story, unless there was some sort of big injury from Sunday that we didn't know about.
But I also do believe that the NFL and their human resources within each team is explaining to all their executives and their coaching staff that this is an NFL email system and we retain all the emails. So it's almost like, the government. If somebody from the White House is sending an email to somebody else, there's a record of that email and what you're saying and what you're doing. So it's very similar in that fashion. And I would think that, number one, if you were DeMaurice Smith, you'd be disgusted by, those insults. If you're Roger Goodell, you're going to be disgusted by those insults. If you are Mark Davis, you have to be disgusted by those insults because you are a partner to the other 31 teams in the league. It's a very unique kind of setup the way the league does things. It's 1 for 32 and 32 for 1. So Jerry Jones does well in Dallas. Mike Brown's going to do well in Cincinnati. And this is the way it was all set up because of the founders that founded the league, including Wellington Mary here at New York, who said, we got to share the pie to keep everybody going.
Sure.
So the way this whole thing is set up, there's just no way that Jon Gruden could ever walk on the sideline of an NFL field ever again.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.